I call Stuart Nash.
Mr Speaker, as Megan Woods pointed out, we are supporting this bill to select committee. But I would say, Mr Speaker, the last member made some very good points. And those points are that this could become quite confusing. But, Mr Speaker, the reason why we're supporting this to select committee is the way Parliament tends to work is we come up with these great ideas, there are good bills, and we take them to select committee, then the experts come in and they nut out these difficult decisions, these troublesome points that the last member brought up. And if there are solutions to them, which I have no doubt there are, then we can incorporate it in the legislation. As Mr Shaw will tell you, this bill in the form at the moment doesn't necessarily have to be the final form that comes back to the House. But I actually believe that we are beholden to members who put up private members' bills to actually take it to a select committee and let's get it tested by the absolute experts. And the experts will say to us, no, this just isn't practical because it won't allow us to do that, or governance will be difficult to implement, or it may put us in a conflicting situation. But until we actually know that, all we're doing at the moment is making assumptions. So I actually think we should be sending this to a select committee, and I would love to hear what the experts have to say. And one of the reasons I'm supporting this to select committee is, Mr Speaker, there are a myriad of domestic and international investments at the moment that a super fund or the ACC or any other fund has the ability to invest in. And like you, I have immense respect for Agent Orr and the guardians of the super fund because they are extremely clever investors. They have proven themselves to be very, very prudent. And I'm assuming if we gave them direction from Parliament that there are certain investments that we consider as a country and as a Parliament to be unethical, then they would say that's fine. They would remove that from their portfolio and they would go forward into other investments. But there are a couple of implications of this, Mr Speaker. The first is, what does New Zealand stand for? This cuts into our global image. We've got to be seen to be walking the walk, just not talking the talk. Mr Grosser told us today in question time that we are going to Paris and we have done all this and we're going to save the world, as Mr Shaw said. Well, if that's the case, then let's go to Paris and let's tell the other countries that New Zealand believes that this is a real issue. And in fact, not only do we believe it, this is the actions we are taking. And it is an easy thing to do in this case. And this is why we should send this to select committee. I must admit, I do smile sometimes at the ACT member when he stands up and says, this is a noble bill with noble intentions. Well, I say to him, then support it. Then take it forward, and again, let's see what the experts have to say. I do not believe that it creates a conflicting objective in any way, shape or form, Mr Chair. In fact, if we have a look at what our super fund has done, let's just talk about the super fund for a moment. Mr Chair, the facts say that the super fund instigated by the Kirk government, if that was still around, it'd be worth about $242 billion in today's money. Muldoon cut it, illegally as it turned out. It seems that this government is making the same mistakes that the Muldoon government made. They've cut contributions to the super fund at a time when the super fund is making extraordinary returns. What I would first love to see is, in fact, contributions to the super fund started again. And then let's have the argument around what constitutes ethical and unethical investment. Let's have the conversation about where we want to move as a country. Let's have a conversation as a Parliament, but wider. Let's have a conversation in the general public about where we see our country perhaps in 2050 and how we get there, what the objectives are we want to achieve and what role the government can actually play in achieving these objectives. And one of the roles that we can play as a Parliament, Mr Speaker, is representing the will of the people. And I wouldn't say that this is the most challenging issue. I think the most challenging issue is actually sustainable economic development and jobs, and throw into that inequality. But it is certainly a very important issue, the issue around climate change. It has reached that tipping point where it's not just a bunch of, I was going to say greenies, just of environmentalists that this concerns. This is the wider community, and we get it wherever we go. We get the question, what are you doing about climate change? This bill is just one of the pieces in the jigsaw to address the conversation. I think we should have sent it to Select Committee. I would absolutely support sending it to Select Committee because there are people who are a lot more intelligent and a lot more competent than all of us here who would have provided answers to the questions we have. Unfortunately, now that is not going to be tested unless the Nats vote for it. Thank you very much.